something reasonably jacked up happened to me yesterday, and I was kind of pissed off about it for about a minute before I realized that in the grand scheme of things it was nowhere near the most jacked up thing that ever happened to me, so I let it go. But it got me thinking, what is the most, and by the way, this is a question for you, what is the most jacked up thing that has ever happened to date in your life? And I will start this. About 1990-ish, maybe late 80s, early 90s, I've kind of put a mental block in this whole thing. I had went to lunch at McDonald's. And in the process of going to McDonald's, well, I went to McDonald's, I basically asked for a Big Mac meal with extra sauce on the Big Mac. And I typically ask for extra sauce on a Big Mac because that way they make it fresh. So I'm eating my Big Mac. And about maybe a third of the way through eating this Big Mac, I set it down like that, top bun down. And I noticed that the bottom of the bun was soaked in blood. And my first reaction was, because it wasn't like raw hamburger blood. It was like human blood. And my first reaction was, oh my God, I bit my lip, or I bit my tongue. So I went to the bathroom, I looked in the mirror, and I was not bleeding. And I looked at my hands, I'm not bleeding. So I'm thinking, oh, holy shit. The person who made this Big Mac for me is bleeding. So now, to realize how jacked up the story is, you have to put it in context of the time frame. Back in the late 80s, I'd say mid 80s to probably mid 90s, we heard an awful lot about AIDS, the AIDS epidemic, hepatitis, and all these bloodborne diseases. And this is before the internet, but the news every day was this big epidemic and blah blah blah, and it's going to kill everybody. So I was kind of freaked out. So I go up to the manager and showed him exactly what the deal was, and he said, well, I can give you a new Big Mac. And I said, you know what, I'm no longer hungry. You think you can give me my money back? And he said, yeah. And I was really kind of feeling nauseous. So he gives me my money back, and I leave. And I went home, and I was dwelling, and it just really was driving me crazy. So the next day I called the corporate offices at McDonald's, and I told them what had happened. And they said, well, let us talk to the manager and we'll give you a call back. And I guess about 2 days went by, and I got a phone call, and it was from a McDonald's attorney. And he said, here's the deal. We are willing to pay for you to have an AIDS test or hepatitis test, a blood test that, to resolve this. We're willing to pay for that. And I said, well, what I would like is, I would like her to be tested. The girl that put my Big Mac together, I would like her to be tested. And I don't have a problem with being tested also, but I'd like her to be tested. And he said, well, let me call you back. And another day went by, and he called me back, and he said, look, we can't test her. And I said, well, you're shitting me. He said, no, we can't test her because of the Americans with Disability Act. And I said, let me call you back. And I called my congressman, and I asked them about that. One of the staffers I talked to, and they researched it and called me back, and they said, look, that's a complete abuse of the Americans with Disability Act. We feel that they can't hide behind that. That's okay for them to test her. So I called this attorney back, and I said, look, as far as my congressman's concerned, you can't hide behind the Americans with Disability Act. I still want her to be tested. He said, look, we're not going to test her. We will test you. We will pay for you to get tested for anything you want to get tested for, but we are not going to test her. And so I hung up on the guy, and I was talking to some friends of mine about it. And one of my friends said, look, go to the medical college. They've got this anonymous testing program. They'll give you a number, da-da-da-da-da. Because, my concern was that, first of all, I didn't feel like I should be the one that should be initially tested anyway. Sure, I could be tested, but I really thought that it was on McDonald's to test their employee since, they exposed me to her blood. Now, I'm not even saying that they did this on purpose. I'm sure she cut her hand, didn't even realize it. Okay, I'm not saying she was Typhoid Mary or anything like that. Well, anyway, so long story short, if that's possible for me, I went to the medical college and got tested, and then got tested 6 months later, and everything was cool. But, you know, it was years before I could eat at McDonald's again. In fact, probably for the next 3 years after this happened, if I was driving down the road and seeing the golden arches, it made me nauseous. But I mean, I finally got, time heals all wounds. I finally got past that. But to this day, one of the things that pisses me off the most is that McDonald's never, nobody at McDonald's, not the manager, not corporate, not their attorney, nobody ever said, look, we're really sorry. We're sorry this happened. It wasn't done on purpose, but we're really sorry. You know, they went into complete defense mode from Jump Street. But, you know, I guess in the world we live in, that is what it is. It wasn't all that long after that woman had gotten millions of dollars for spilling coffee on herself. So maybe they were, you know, maybe they were just defensive over the whole thing. I'm not the suing type. You know, a lot of my friends say, man, I had to sue the hell out of them, you know. Not really my style. I mean, I knew it wasn't something that was done on purpose. I am somewhat pissed off that they didn't take the lead in doing the right thing. And in my opinion, the right thing would have been to test her, test me, you know, make sure everybody was just fine. You know, accidents do happen. But it is what it is. But to this day, that whole scene was the most jacked up thing that's ever happened to me. So I would like people that are watching this to make a response video. Tell us what the most jacked up thing was that ever happened to you today. And if you don't have the ability to do that, type in comments. Tell us about it. I'd love to know. Anyway, thank you. Have a good one.